to cover the pot, and when you cover it, definitely you see that the fire is going out. So smoldering is the second system of putting out fire. Then the last one we have is called cooling. Cooling is when you use like when you're trying to reduce the heat below its ignition temperature by the use of water. By the use of water is called what? It's called cooling. So starvation, smoldering, and cooling are the three methods that are used in extinguishing fire. And how it works is by taking away one of the elements of fire, such that when any of the elements of fire is taken out, then you will see that fire definitely goes out. You see that the fire definitely goes out. All right, the next subtopic we are looking at is extinguishers. The next extinguishers we are looking the next topic we are looking at is extinguishers. Okay, now earlier on I stated that fire extinguishers is one of the equipment that can be used whenever there's a fire outbreak to effectively deal with and manage fire. And we said that the man on the spot who knows how to use a fire extinguisher is very, very valuable. The reason why that person is very valuable is because once fire break out and the person is there, he can help to manage and put out that fire before it develops into a large fire, or before it develops into what we call an inferno. Okay, so this extinguisher is what we use for that purpose. Now, let's look at this slide I'm showing us right now. Extinguisher color coding. You will see that extinguishers generally, before, extinguishers that were produced usually have different colors. You could have it as black, you could have it as red, you could have it as yellow, you could have it as all of that. You can see it, carbon dioxide it usually had different colors. Let me put it that way. But in what we call the new convention, fire extinguishers have one color, and that color is red. However, they still retain a particular color coding that is used in identifying the extinguishing content. For instance, colors have been assigned to different extinguishers and its content for purpose of differentiation. For instance, if you see black fire extinguisher, you know that that extinguisher is CO2. If you see DCP or dry chemical powder, you know that it is blue. If you see foam, you know that it is cream. And if you see water, you know that is what it is red extinguisher. But in the new convention of fire extinguishers, the whole extinguishers do not carry the content of the fire extinguishers. Okay, no, it doesn't. It still retains the same color, that is red. All fire extinguishers being red. But what is now happening that it has a band, it has a place where you will see the color of the still retained. That is the black, just as you can see in the picture, the black, the blue, the cream, and the red color. So the extinguishers still retain these various colors, but the whole extinguisher itself is red in color. But don't forget, CO2 is associated with black. Blue is associated with DCP. Yellow or foam is associated with what? With foam extinguisher. Then lastly, water is associated with what? With red extinguishers. Okay. how should fire extinguishers be stored? How should fire extinguishers be stored? Now, fire extinguishers have a way that is stored. You don't just keep fire extinguisher anyhow and anywhere like any other this thing. No. Okay. Fire extinguishers is supposed to sit 1.5 meters above the ground. In fact, you see that in most public spaces, you can always see their fire extinguisher once you're entering that building or that facility. The reason why that is done is so that people can easily note where that fire extinguisher is. Sometimes a fire can break out, and people might not be around in the office, and to be able to manage it. And so um, for that reason, it's good to place it in a public space where anybody that is coming around can easily see it, know where it is, and be able to help to put out the fire anytime it starts. So it should be in an accessible and visible place, and have a pictograph, like a pictograph or checking sticker where you can check if it is not expired, the date it was produced, and if it can still be um, used. So based on this now, we will now enter how to extinguish a fire. Now, since we have different types of extinguishers, it simply means that these extinguishers are suited for fighting certain kinds of fires better than other types of fire.
Hello, Mr. Hillary.
Uh, uh,
Hello, Mr. Hillary.
CO2, for instance, which is black in color of the extinguisher, we said is an extinguisher that is suitable for fighting gaseous substances. Okay.
Hello, Mr. Hillary.
Extinguishers, water,
Hello,
are
Mr.
also good
Hillary.
for
Can you hear me?
fighting class A fire. That's the fires that involve solid substances. We also have
Hello, Mr. Hillary.
dry chemical powder, that is GCP,
Hello, Mr. Hillary.
yes,
Okay.
I can hear you. Hello.
Okay, Dr.
Hello.
Chris. Hello, Dr. Chris. Yes.
I can't hear you.
This is Dr. Chris. Dr. Chris.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Please put more
Hello,
energy
sir. I can
in
hear
class.
you, sir.
Put more energy. Put more energy in class.
Okay, sir. All right, sir. Okay, sir.
It's like you are tired.
Okay, so okay, no, it's all right, sir. It's all right, sir. I will, sir. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we're talking about extinguishing agents and fire that they are suitable for fighting. All right, and we just after looking at the various classes of fire, we said extinguishing agents and the fire that they can fight better. So as I said earlier on, class A fires, which are fires involving solid substances, are best extinguished with water extinguishers. For instance, if you're dealing with fires that involve gaseous substances, it is best extinguished with carbon dioxide, because carbon dioxide is also a gaseous substance, but it is denser, or it is heavier than air. Then we have DCP, which is dry chemical powder, and we said DCP is effective in fighting both class A, class B, and class C fires. So it can fight all forms of fire, and because of that, we call DCP an all-purpose fire extinguisher. The only drawback or the only limitation of dry chemical powder is that it usually leaves an ash, or what we call a residue. So you can, when you use a DCP to extinguish fire, you're going to be seeing some, white particles, like dust particles, at the end of that, of using that extinguisher. But the extinguisher that we call a clean agent is carbon dioxide, that is CO2. We call it a clean agent fire extinguisher because it does not leave any residue after being used. So from this table, we can see and understand that we have different types of extinguishers, because these extinguishers are suited for fighting certain kinds of fires better. Class A fires are suitable to be fought with water. You can also use foam, and you can also use dry chemical powder. Class C fires, fires involving gaseous substances, are best fought with what? Carbon dioxide and also DCP. But if you wanted to get an all-purpose fire extinguisher, then you should get dry chemical powder, because it's of these fires. Okay, so let's move on now. What are the emergency procedures? What are the emergency procedures to note in dealing with fire? How do you effectively handle and fight fire when there's a fire breakout? So we're going to look at emergency response and evacuation procedure. Emergency response and evacuation procedure. Now, the first thing you do when you notice fire is to call for attention. Okay, fire, you call. The reason is because you alone might not be well able to effectively fight that fire. So it is important to call attention, call people around to come and help to manage that situation by raising an alarm and shouting out and calling for people around to come and assist. Then activate an alarm call point, okay, by pressing a button. If you're in a public building, a public space, most of the time, or in an office setting, there are usually fire alarms. So if you go there and activate the alarm, so that those that are not within your voice reach will be aware that there's fire in the building and everyone can run to safety. Then you call available number for fire service. Most offices, you see fire service, you see the police, you see emergency responses lines displayed. And just for general emergency, we also have 112. You can call 112 line, which is a general emergency line in case of fire. Okay, then in doing that, give your name, give location of the fire, then raise the alarm, then select suitable fire extinguisher. Note the word suitable. Suitable, because we just looked at different types of fire extinguishers. So you look for and check for a fire extinguisher that is suitable to fight that fire, and we said you try it out, check it if it's working, check it if it's still effective, because that fire extinguisher might not have been used in the last 2 years and it might not have been serviced, so that you don't get to the point where you want to use the extinguisher and it is not working. So get it, try it a little, if it's working, if the nozzle, if the head is still okay, then you go close to the fire and give a couple of yards away from the fire. Please do not just waste extinguisher, and you fight flames at the base. You do not fight fire by putting the extinguisher on the flames itself. No, you fight fire by using the extinguisher at the base, okay, of the fire. Then never turn back after extinguishing the fire. What does that mean? But you have already put out the fire. Why are we saying you should not turn back? We are saying that sometimes, even after using an extinguisher, there is still a tendency that the fire can still come up again. There's certain times that you put out, maybe using water, you put out firewood and all of that, only to discover that the fire did not go out completely. The embers of the fire are reigniting again. So by not turning back, we mean that you make sure that the fire has been put out thoroughly and completely before you can leave the area. And if it's not an office setting, if it's an area where there's water, you can still use water so that the fire do not have a comeback again. These are emergency procedures to note. Raise alarm, call for help, put on the alarm, call fire service or emergency response, select suitable fire extinguishers, and fight flames at the base. Okay, we're going to see very soon how to use a fire extinguisher. Fight flame at the base and make sure the fire has been put out completely before you leave that particular area. Okay, now apart from you who was at the scene of the incident when the fire occurred. There could still be some other persons that are not within that particular environment when the fire happens. So if I'm in a building, for instance, and I just hear that the fire alarm going up out, maybe it has been activated by somebody within an environment where I am not. So what I will do, or what you are supposed to do, is when you hear the fire alarm, immediately exit the building through emergency exit. Okay, unfortunately there are many places that even lock their emergency exit. There was a case of a fire incident in Imperial sugar refinery in the US, a very large fire that consumed almost every part of the refinery, of the factory. And during investigation, it was discovered that most of the emergency exit routes were locked. Okay, and the owner eventually got into trouble because people died as a result of the fact that they could not escape. So emergency exits are for emergencies. Okay, and so those routes are usually properly signed. You see it written in many spaces: emergency exit through this door. So go through the nearest exit that you have that is close to you, and do not go for personal belongings. Life is more important than any other thing. Okay, even if it's at home, do not start rushing for your boxes, your clothes, and your TV. If it defies already, if it's going to pose danger to your life, do not go for personal luggages or belongings, and as much as possible, shut the door behind you. Now, if you're looking at the slide, you will see do not lock. Shut. There is a difference. You're shutting the door to cut off oxygen, to cut off the inflow of air that will make the fire burn, increase, and get it to become an inferno. You're reducing the tendency. And you do not lock also because there could still be other people that are trapped within that building, or that are still within that building. So you close the door, you do not lock, and try not to panic. Try not to panic. In many cases, whenever there are emergencies and cases like this, security issues, fires, and all of these kinds of emergencies, people lose it. People are no longer composed. People can no longer think straight, and they start making mistakes and bad decisions that eventually gets them in big problems. So pull yourself together, calm down, because that is the only way you can make the right judgment and get out of that scenario or that situation. And if you are in the next point is, if you are in an uprise building, 10-story, 2-story, 4-story building, if you're up, do not use the lift. Okay, as much as possible, use the staircase. Avoid lifts, rather use the staircase. The reason is, if you are to use a lift and power goes out, maybe there's a power outage because of the fire, one can be trapped. And when one is trapped in the elevator, it's a big problem because there is not even enough air to keep one sustained for long in an elevator. So do not use lift, use staircase. And then assemble at the muster point. A muster point is a place where people gather when there's an emergency. Okay, people gather at a muster point, and mostly is for roll call and to check the safety of individuals and people that are supposed to be in that building. Okay, you assemble at the muster point, for instructions, guidance, and what is meant to be done. Now, if the building you are is a public space that is unaccounted, the number of persons is unaccounted for. Once you get to safety, you can move away from that place. But in a building that everyone is accounted for, please make sure you go to the muster point so that everyone can know that you are safe. If you do not stay at the muster point and you go somewhere else, it is assumed that you are still in the building. And if you're called and your number is not going through, then it can become a problem, because everyone starts thinking, oh, Shade is still inside, oh, Femi is still inside the building, his number is not good, maybe he's trapped, and all of that, and everyone gets worried and start thinking of how to save that particular individual. So assemble at muster point for roll call and to check that everyone is still safe. And as much as possible, do not re-enter the building until the emergency is declared over. Do not re-enter the building until the emergency is declared over. These are guidelines for all those that may not be at the scene of the incident, where or at the scene of the emergency, and get to know or get to hear the alarm or from other people around of what is going on in the building. Okay, so let's look at general fire prevention tips. I hope we are with me. Our time is ticking very fast, so we have to go. So we have to go a bit fast. So let's look at fire prevention tips. Now, fire detection, warning systems, and evacuation systems has to be properly designed and maintained. Routes and procedures must be carefully designed and maintained. Okay, so if you're putting up a building, or even if it's not a new building, buildings are meant to be are supposed to have smoke detectors, that once smoke, most of the time fire starts with smoke, and once smoke is already around that vicinity or environment, the detection systems easily identifies and triggers an alarm. And in some cases, sprinklers can be installed in buildings, so that once the fire starts, okay, these sprinklers are activated when it gets to a particular temperature that is, of course, abnormal. And once that sprinkler is activated because of the level of heat, it cools the area. It's a form of fire prevention and also fire control. So the sprinkler starts sprinkling water all over that building, and it reduces the possibility of fire. So we are saying that we all have a responsibility to make sure that the right thing is done by seeing that there's fire detection systems. Evacuation routes should be properly signed. Okay, but by that, it should be labeled, it should be written evacuation or emergency exit routes. Okay, then staff, just like we are doing right now, staff are meant to be trained on fire procedures. Okay, staff should be trained on fire procedure, the basic fire safety that everyone needs for the homes, in the offices, in public spaces. It is so surprising that whenever there's an emergency, people get confused. They don't even know what to do. And the reason is because they do not have the basic training, just like you are getting, on how to effectively manage fire. For instance, if there's a fire outbreak somewhere tomorrow, you know what to do. You know you should call for help. You know you should call for emergency. You know you should go for the fire extinguisher. You know that you should pick up the fire extinguisher and go close to the fire and see what you can do about it. You know that you know how to make a call. You know what to tell those around you. Everybody should get to the muster point because you have been trained. So workers should be trained. Okay, and escape route should be clear. Escape route should not be used for luggages, store, and all sorts of things that are kept within that spaces or within those spaces. Okay, then notices, there should be proper notice. Okay, and signages should be displayed as strategic point to give guidance on what to do in case of fire. I want to believe we are following the class so far, and we have been discussing basic fire safety. We started by defining what fire is, and we said it's a chemical process that involves is a chemical oxidation process that involves the production of heat, flame, and smoke. Okay, these three elements are produced in a fire, and we said that for you to have fire, three elements must come together. You must have a heat source, you must have oxygen, and you must have a fuel source. So the oxygen, the fuel, and the heat source come together, and you can have fire. We've looked at the different types of heat sources. We've looked at different types of fuel. We said solid, liquid, and gaseous fuels. We've also looked at oxygen. Okay, and we said that to put away fire, all you need to do is to remove any of the elements in the fire. If we take away oxygen, you have stopped the fire, because fire needs oxygen to burn. If you take away a fuel source, then there's really nothing that is going to burn. So these three elements must come together for you to have fire. And at any time you take away any of the elements, you're going to put out the fire. There are three methods of extinguishing fire. The first one is starvation. Starvation is when you take away a fuel source. Smoldering is when you prevent oxygen. And I gave an example. I said you're cooking in the kitchen and you cover, and fire comes out of the pot. There's a fire, lead to fire outbreak. You can use the lid of your pot to cover it, or by use of fire blanket. Fire blanket works by smoldering, by cutting away oxygen. Or maybe somebody's dress catches fire and the person is running, and you don't know that that person that is running is only increasing the flames. What is it meant to be? Supposed to drop down on the floor and roll himself, so that smoldering helps to cut away the oxygen. Or you who is there, a wrapper or a blanket, and quickly fold it around the person very quickly within seconds to cut away the oxygen. Okay. So after we also looked at the fire extinguishers, and we said basically there are more than that, but basically we have four types of fire extinguishers. We have CO2 extinguishers. We have foam or cream extinguishers. Uh, we have fires extinguishers that involve water. Okay, and lastly, extinguishers that are DCP, that's dry chemical powder. So CO2, dry chemical powder, foam, and lastly, water. These are the basic types of fire extinguishers, and we said they are used in fighting different types of fires depending on the class of fires that is being dealt with. You could have class A, class B, class C types of fires, and class A is fires involving solid substances. It could be wood, it could be paper, it could be hard material. Okay, class B fires involving liquid substances, petrol, kerosene. We could have class C fires involving gaseous substances, like propane is a gaseous, methane, our cooking gas. There are all types of gases. And lastly, we have okay, we didn't mention this, but we have class D fires, which are fires involving metallic substances. Then classless fires, which is what? Electricity. Then we looked at how extinguishers can be used effectively in fighting these fires. Next, next is how to use fire extinguishers. We discussed fires, extinguishers. We've talked about the kind of fires that they are used to deal with. But now, how do you use a fire extinguisher? How can an extinguisher be used? Now, it is very simple to know and note how an extinguisher can be used by remembering the acronym PASS, PASS. First P stands for pull the pin. Always remember the acronym PASS anytime you want to use a fire extinguisher. The first P stands for pull the pin. Now, on an extinguisher, there is usually a safety pin. Let me move to that slide. Okay. On an extinguisher, you can see a small pin at the head. There's usually a pin on the head of the extinguisher. And what is the essence of that pin? That pin is a preventive mechanism that does not allow you to mistakenly press the nozzle or the head, because the same place where you lift or where you hold the fire extinguisher is the same place where you press it for the content to come out. So that safety pin is there. So before you use the extinguisher, the first thing is to pull the pin. That's where the P comes from. So you pull the pin, then you aim the extinguisher nozzle at the base of flames. What is the nozzle? The nozzle is the mouth. The nozzle is the exit where you have the content or the extinguisher itself come out of. So you pull the pin, you aim extinguisher nozzle at the base of flames. Do not fight fire at the top. No, you fight at the base of the flames. Then next is that you do what? You squeeze the trigger. Okay, the trigger is the handle, the arm, or the lever. You press it together. You can see it also on the slide. I want to show us. Okay, you see the arm. You can see it. You can see it. This arm, they are together. You can see the mouth of the extinguisher. That is, the mouth is called where the exit of the chemical combat is called the exit, or the nozzle. Then these are the arm. Then you have your gauge. Okay, the pressure gauge that is up there. All right, so you pull the pin, you aim extinguisher at the nozzle at the base of the flame, then you squeeze the trigger while holding the extinguisher. Then you sweep from what? Side to side. You sweep from side to side, covering the area of the fire with the extinguishing agent. You cover the area of the fire with the extinguishing agent. So that's how to use an extinguisher. Always remember the acronym PASS. Pull the pin, aim the extinguisher at the nozzle at the base of flame, squeeze the trigger while holding the extinguisher, and sweep the extinguisher from side to side. Okay. Having noted that, remember the following. Should your path of escape be threatened, should the extinguisher run out of agent, should your path of escape be threatened, should the extinguisher run out of agent, should the extinguisher prove to be ineffective. Listen, your path of escape is threatened where you know that you are helping, you want to put out the uh, shouldn't be able to fight the fire, then leave the area immediately. Thank you for being part of this class, and I wish you a wonderful day. Thank you very much. Thank you.